It's the morning star drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another week's episode of the Tuesday segment on the MSD on 117.8. I'm really glad to once again to be able to record this and send this out to you guys. I know last week for the New Year's, you guys were able to receive that video recording with P Sky and with Rachel, and it was really a fun time to be able to do that. Right, it's been a very long time since I think Peace Guys like recorded a video in that sense for the MSD, and that we've been able to have like a team for like those who have been working on the MSD to come together and to kind of reflect on things in the past. Right now, I'm in Busan, right, which is in the southern corner of Korea. And I think, for those who've been listening over the last few years, like, I stayed in Busan for close to 3 months, like in 2024. And coming back here, it was surreal, because, I think anywhere, I don't know, and I don't know how many people this applies to, but if you live in a place for like longer than I would say a month, right? It starts to feel like home, right? Maybe even a month, right? And it maybe varies for person to person too. But like being here for 3 months, like and coming back here, it really felt like coming back home in a sense, right? Like my cousin's family who used to live in one area of Busan, they moved since I was there, but going from like where they used to live to the new place, it was weird, right? Because it's kind of like you were being displaced, right? Even though I never lived here. But like driving past, all the areas that I used to walk for those few months, as well as, going to the church here on Sunday, it really reminded me of the past. And it also really reminded me of last year too, of 2025. And so I really hope that everyone's having a great start to this year, right? The year of running, right? Of running like a horse, as this week's message said. And as something said, like, even though, yes, we should be running like horses this year, he said to spend the first 5 days, this first 10 days, right? The Holy Spirit said this, right? Like through the Holy Spirit letter to like plan and to prepare for this year. And so I hope that everyone's really having that time to be able to do that. And for those who are like kind of lost and like not sure yet, like, who of us are really sure about what the year will hold? But it doesn't mean that we shouldn't determine and set our path, right? It really means that we should absolutely pray to God and to the Holy Spirit and to the Holy Son to determine our path for the remaining of this year. And I guess by the time that this goes out, it'll be January 6th. So we've already had these first 5 days to welcome in the new year, to give glory, right? And now we have these 5 more upcoming days to fulfill this purpose and to set the direction for this year. So let's really continue to pray for one another. Like being here and seeing Providence people, we really saw how important it is to pray for one another, because we're so filled with hope, right? Like, and I know Peace Guy kind of mentioned it. I think he said this in the recording, but 2026, it really feels like this year we can really run in earnest. Like 2024 and 2025 were kind of these recovery years. And like, and it kind of makes sense that I hope that, after having gone through it, everyone kind of has taken away a lot from this period, right? Because like as you live through life, like the moment when you receive a wound, it's like kind of a sharp, instantaneous pain. But actually, the much worse pain is like when the pain persists and you're living through the pain and you're waiting to recover from it. And that period is much longer than just like the moment you're inflicted with the wound. But as he kind of said, and maybe many people agree, and especially with this, this Sunday's message about running like a horse, kind of setting the direction, the expectation for this year. I hope that everyone has made their hearts ready for this moment, right? And I think it was either in the Holy Spirit letter or it was in the message where no, no, I think this was in the message where it said that God, uh, we may not know exactly what God's will is, or where it will go, but God absolutely fulfills his will no matter what, right? Each year. So even this year, he will absolutely fulfill his will, right? So it's something that we surely have to do, and we have to do our part within that will. Yes, so I for one am very excited for this year, and even in these last few weeks here in Korea, I've got to experience so many things that I'm extremely grateful for. Like even coming here to Busan, I'm not just here to visit, my family, my maternal side of the family, but my wife was actually born here in Busan too. And even though she only lived here for a month or so, we were coming back to her hometown, and her maternal side of the family are all from Busan too, right? And her mother is from Busan as well. And so we came here to, greet family, to introduce ourselves since we're married. And so, over this past weekend, we got to meet all of her aunts and uncles that live here in Busan. And on Sunday, we got to observe service with the members here. And the person who evangelized her mother is here too, right? And my twin aunt is here as well. And then we got to spend the afternoon, with my aunt, as well as celebrate, my mother-in-law's birthday a little bit early, right? So it was really a graceful time, and we got to hear so many stories from like our parents as well as from our aunts and uncles and from the various different kinds of people. And it made me really once again realize the value of family. And it's incredible because, I got blessed, right? Me and Jung, my wife and I got blessed. And also my cousin got blessed too. And all of us who got blessed, within our families are second generation. So that means we have parents who are in Providence and siblings who are in Providence too. And get this, but even my cousin's husband, his sister, his older sister got blessed this time too, and who's also a second gen. And so, like now, all of a sudden, we became this huge family within Providence. Like we're like, all of us, like because we were second gen and we already had extended family in Providence, it was already kind of big. But now it's like connected like beyond words. It's quite crazy, right? Like even between us and our cousins, like, we made up like quite a handful of people, but all of my in-laws like are in Providence. And then, my cousin's in-laws are in Providence. And so it's become this huge like connected family, right? And this is a big part of our hope too, right? And I think I really want to share this because so far in the West, and in the English speaking countries, I don't think it's yet something that we can foresee, right? Like this day when spiritually we're all family, of course, but like spiritually and physically, a day when we become interconnected in this kind of way. Like we haven't really met yet with all of these people who are in Providence, who our lives have become connected to through the blessing. But I'm sure that they will come too. And as a joke, a lot of the parents of second generation, they said like, "Wow, like we really have to live well, right? Because all of that gets passed down to our children, like even during the blessing too." Right? And if there were fights and conflicts between the first generation or fights and conflicts with the second generation, right? It makes it so that we can become one harmonious family. But I wanted to share that because that day too will come, like whether it's America or Canada or like whatever other country where province has spread to, like we will continue to become this one great big family, right? And I think that was a big hope that that we all have, like as we come to Providence, right? Like as this world becomes transformed into the complete testament time period, and um the things of this completed history under the new word, it's something that we foresaw, but like way into the future. And I just wanted to share this because that day is coming for all of us. Yeah, and coming here, seeing both my wife's maternal side of the family and seeing her mother, so happy with her family as well as with the our extended family this time around. It was really great to see, right? And I think as we said, like this too is part of what we live for, right? Like these moments together with our family. And at times there may be conflicts within the family, and there may be people who are listening who don't really have a great relationship with the family, or even have a current family. And like even with that too, that's something that we discuss because all of us, like, we grew up with lots of conflict within our family. And it's not like that there was ever like our parents like hated each other or anything like that. But just growing up, things were difficult. And a lot of the things that the people who got blessed like back before uh you know before there was anyone else, right? Like in Korea, like there's this idea of like someone who's more senior than you, and someone who's more junior. So it's just kind of like someone who has done it before, right? Like an example. And in Korea, that's this big part of the culture, right? So a lot of the things that we talked about yesterday were that, yeah, before our parents' generation, there wasn't really anyone else who got blessed, right? And so no one knew what to expect. And they actually, our parents are like, there was this kind of this expectation that, like, since we got blessed in Providence, everything would work out from that point. But I think even for all of us, after having been in Providence in 2023 and in these last few years, we know that that's not how things work. Like, we still have our responsibility, and that kind of goes to the message this week, right? Like even the scripture from Revelation, it says, each person receives according to what they have done, right? This is a law that God has given. And that's something like that this week's message has really told us, right? Like about this year, about running like a horse, right? Like each of us receive the things that we do. And if you just sit and stare at something, it doesn't work out. Right. And so, our parents and my aunt and uncle were saying, like, yeah, like before, like, people thought that because we are all in Providence, when we have children they would naturally have faith, they would naturally go to something, they will naturally do all of these things, like they were like down to the DNA. The second generation would be different. And luckily for many parents, they were like, they realized very quickly that that's not the case, right? After they had children, like, oh, it doesn't work that way. Like, we still have to do our responsibility. But it doesn't mean that we were perfect, and it does mean that each of us should put in an effort too to make ourselves right. And in fact, the message said, like, how great is it that God gives only according to your deeds, like only according to what you've done, right? So, like, if this world were such a world where if you do one but two things happen, you'd be scared. And that was like, it's a really powerful and a poignant point, right? Because, like, yeah, like if there were this lack of clarity about the world, right? Because of like there's chaos, and even though you only wanted one thing, you grabbed two on accident. Like, if we lived in such a world, it'd be such a chaotic and confusing reality. Right. And like it talked about how even in a 300-page book, if you only read up to the first 100 pages, that's all you really know. And so it's such a great thing that we live in such a world where God gives us according to what we do, right? And but that's not the only thing, right? Like, God doesn't just drop us off in this world and leave us in this state. Like, this part I thought in the message was really powerful. It says, when God desires to give someone something because He loves them, what would God do? Right? And like it says that he gives them the ability to take action, gives them the word for them to act on, gives them a willing heart, and then waits for them to take action. Yeah. And in Korean too, this part was really powerful. Like, I think one of the things that are lost in translation are like literary devices. Like, I think this one, it's kind of there because it keeps talking about like God giving them, but I think there's like a sort of alliteration in Korean because it repeats the word 행할, or 행하, 행하기를. And so it's kind of like the ability, like taking action. That word is repeated, and so it's alliterated in Korean. And so it's like powerful both in terms of the message and even in terms of the delivery as well. But either way, this part was so powerful, right? It's just like when God desires to give someone something, right? Like He gives them these things. It's not just suddenly like, and this is uh we've known this, right? Like even from like our very first Bible study in 30 Principles, even from like Peter and the fish and other things, it's not just that God drops money into the mouth of a fish to provide for you, but He gives us the ability, right? He gives us the word, He gives us a willing heart, and then through those three things, He allows us to take action for ourselves, right? Like, and there's the axiomatic saying, right? And there's a saying in even in English saying, like if you teach a man to fish, right? Like he can provide for himself for the rest of his life, right? If you give a man a fish, you can feed him for a day. But for all of us, and I think this is something to keep in mind for ourselves too, and I don't know for how many people, like when they were newcomers, whether that's something that they really thought about or something that was really taught to all of us when we were young. But I think as we go forward, it's really something to emphasize as we teach new lives and as we raise them. Whether they are someone we brought from the world, whether they're second generation, whether it's part of a re-education, teaching ourselves, this is something that we must surely know, right? The way that God fulfills things for us because He loves us is He gives us the ability to take action, whatever it is, right? And something is a living example of that, right? It's not just that you have to be born with talents and gifts and the ability to do every single thing, but God gives us that ability. He gives us two legs, He gives us two eyes, He gives us a mouth, He gives us lips, He gives us all of these things. And we may not be able to do everything in life, but so many things in life we're able to accomplish and achieve, right? And I think of all of the people in the world, the people who should not become embittered and resentful about even being given life are the people within Providence. We surely have to know this. And I think like whenever we become embittered for any particular reason, it's because we've been going the way of the world, right? And I think this is all something that we realize and experience at some point too. And there's like in my Bible read through currently, I'm reading through Isaiah, and there's a part here that I think was really powerful and something for Providence people to really remember and to think about. It was this passage from Isaiah chapter 8. And in the English version, the version that I have, it gives a quick title. It says, "The darkness turns to light." And it says, "When someone tells you to consult mediums and spiritists who whisper and mutter, should not a people inquire of their God? Why consult the dead on behalf of the living? Consult God's instruction and the testimony of warning. If anyone does not speak according to this word, they have no light of dawn. Distressed and hungry, they will roam through the land. When they are famished, they will become enraged and looking upwards, they will curse their king and their God. Then they will look toward the earth and see only distress and darkness and fearful gloom, and they will be thrust into utter darkness. Nevertheless, there will be no more gloom for those who were in distress. In the past, okay, I guess that part doesn't. That part kind of like it goes into Isaiah 9. It talks about a lot. So it kind of like talks about the difference between people who, here is talking about spiritists and mediums. But the part that I got was like it was people who just don't live looking towards God and seeking His word. Like when we lose those things, when we live lives that lose these things, the world becomes utter darkness. When we look out, we don't see hope in the world, in our lives. And this is something that, for me, as we were wrapping up 2025 and entering this year, that I thought was extremely important to pray and to overcome any of the baggage, any of the things that we had from last year, to leave it aside so that we can enter into 2026 with abundant hope, that we can go forward and not look out into the world and see utter darkness, where even uh, light turns to darkness, right? Because it says for those who follow the word, then like even amid the darkness there will be light, and it will transform, right? Instead of light to darkness, it'll go from darkness to light. And so I hope that everyone will be able to run diligently this year with a sense of hope, knowing that God's words, these things that He gives us, ability, a heart, and the word, these three things are all that it takes for us to fulfill, our hopes and dreams, of course, but all of God's hopes and dreams, right? And let's live as heroes, right? And the message say, if you're gonna do it anyways, like if you will live as a hero anyways, something says, I hope that you will set your youth and life ablaze on a grand scale and for a big purpose, right? You're a big person only if you do big work, right? And something specifically said that a big work refers to the work that pertains to the body and the spirit, and that is eternal and everlasting. And so I really hope that all of us will become like those kind of people, right? He said, like, is it acceptable for us to run like horses when this is the time that God is fulfilling His history, and when God and the Holy Spirit are working at the highest level, right? We must instead like run like horses this year, right? And I think the last thing that something ended on, right? The Trinity ended on the video about the buffalo. I think this part was really powerful, right? Because it was really telling us that we have to bind and become one together. Even as we were, meeting with our family members last night, there were a lot of amazing different points of conversation. And, as we live in Providence, there are times where we get into conflict with other people. But, when we leave those things unresolved for a long time, they fester and they don't heal, right? It's not that like that they go away all of a sudden. Sometimes they may, but it doesn't, right? And when especially when those things happen to us, it's hard to see that light. It's hard to see that sense of hope. And there's a tendency to think that like this is everything, right? Like the immediate conflict before us, when it's like and not even like that significant. And when you see that it doesn't happen to just one or two people, it doesn't just happen to ourselves, but it happens to other people in Providence, is a very unfortunate thing, right? And so as you go forward, we have to become people who resolve these things for ourselves, resolve these things with our brothers and sisters, right? Yeah, even from Jesus's time when he was here in the body for the first coming, he told us to forgive our brothers and sisters 77 times. And it's just a thing for life, even if they don't understand in the moment, still to love and still to forgive, still to accept and to understand one another. And so I really hope that we can become like these buffalo who protect each other, who become one, who like when we start charging and when we move forward in one direction, we become this unstoppable this year. So let us run this year like buffalo, let us run this year like horses, and let us not be like rabbits this year, but instead run boldly, knowing that, as the message said at the very beginning, that God fulfills His will absolutely, like whatever it may be, and even if we may not know, since God's will is hope, and He fulfills it, all we have to do is run forward powerfully too, right? But with knowledge and with preparation, of course. And so with this, I'll conclude this part of today's Tuesday segment, and I'll hand things off with Rachel with 2G Talks.
Wow! Look at me now, look at me now, come look at me. I am telling you to look at me. I am smiling, happy and joyful, living with hope in my heart. You can see it all handsome and so beautiful. That's me, that's me. Look at me, won't you please? I'm filled with great joy. I'm filled with love overflowing while I live loving God, loving the Holy Spirit day by day, each single day, smiling and joyful with hope in my heart. Look at me and how I'm living. Won't you look at me? For everyone living in this world, life is filled with so many worries, filled with life's concern. Doesn't matter where you look, this person or that person, all their faces filled with their worries and concerns. What makes them feel this way? Why are they so distressed? What are they worried for? If they live loving God, living in love with the Spirit, calling them, then like me, they will live, chiming like a fox, filled with joy, filled with endless love. I am smiling, laughing and joyful. This is how I live. So look at my life, look at how I live. Forever, forever, follow me, who is living only in love. Follow me, yes, please follow me. Then you'll see both you and I, all of us will be filled with hope, filled with true joy, smiling brightly, living in true hope. Forever we'll live this way, in body, in spirit, and in heart. We'll all live like this. Wow. Look at me now, come look at me.
Hello and welcome back to our Tuesday segment. Rachel here for 2G Talks. Today there is many things to cover, ranging from moving to a new church, second gen lecture, and some personal realizations. So let's go ahead and get started. Yes, welcome back to 2G Talks. A happy new year to everyone. We are officially in our first full week of 2026, the year of running. How has your past week been? It's almost a full week of 2026. Have you been running? Have you really made some New Year's resolution or determination to run until the end? I hope so. I definitely have. Like I said in my intro, there's so many things for me to cover. I'm super excited to share, so I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. I suppose with the most exciting thing that has occurred, I should say most physically exciting thing, which is, yes, we have officially moved to a new church location. I'm very, very grateful to the Holy Trinity. There's so many blessings and stories behind this new move. One thing that I will say, shout out to God and the Holy Trinity, is that this new church is it is far closer to where I live. Originally, the church was about 20 or so minutes away, but now it's only 8 minutes, and I'm incredibly grateful and thankful for that. It's really going to help me fulfill my New Year's resolutions easier, which is going to pre-dawn every day in church as much as possible. Not only, of course, selfishly, is it closer for me, but the church as a whole is much larger. At our past rental that we were staying at, we only had 3 main rooms, which was the sanctuary, a multi-purpose room, and a storage closet. And we had 2 restrooms. The multi-purpose room was indeed multifaceted or purposed. It was used as a Milky Way room for the Sunday school. Parents would use it. It was also like a nursery for the young kids. It was also where we would put up food and sometimes eat in. It was just overall very crowded and very cozy, I will say, church space. But at this new space that we are at, I'm so incredibly thankful and grateful to the Holy Trinity, because not only is it much larger and everyone has their own space, but it's so much cleaner. It's much nicer. We have an abundance of parking. There's no longer any multi-purpose room or a need for that. We're going to have instead things like a banquet hall. We have a kitchen. We've never had a kitchen before in our church. 2 bathrooms, a large, beautiful sanctuary, and even a Sunday school room where we will also be able to hold Bible studies. So there's just so many blessings that we're really receiving here. And I felt as though, like Sinsanim said, 2023, although it was indeed the year that everyone had to make it until, because of that 3.5 years afterwards with time, half a time, it was like, can you really go until the end? And so now it feels as though we've all made it to the very end. And because of that, we've been blessed. And now we're resurrecting and raising our church atmosphere, our environment as well on top of that. So yes, I just want to say big Thanksgiving, big shout out to the Holy Trinity and the Lord for our new church building. We're super excited. We're going to be instilling many new programs, things that we did in the past that we ended up stopping because of the difficulty with our small, cozy, church. And I'm just really hopeful and looking forward to what the future is going to hold with this new church. So just shout out, wanted to say, yeah, we got a new church. Still a rental, but it is a much nicer and, yes, clean, wonderful church. So next thing, as I mentioned in my intro, we had our first official second generation lecture training. So actually, I started the program, the second gen leaders and we started the program I want to say at the end of December. We sent out forms and we had actually many second generation respond and show interest to the lecture training, which I wasn't expecting, honestly. Although America is a really big country, we have very small number of Providence members, and even less than, of course, with second generation. And so whenever we officially prompted or sent out a statement saying we're going to start a lecture program, only at that point had a few people reached out to me, maybe 2 or 3, saying that they wanted to do a lecture training. And I thought I was actually very satisfied and happy with that, because that's going to be way easier for me to be able to manage and take care of and things like that. However, when push came to shove and we sent it out, we received over 10 second generation who said they showed and actually wanted to participate in the lecture training. And it was stated, if you're not in the States, this specific lecture training was announced to not be a re-education where we just listen to lectures and make your own notes of it, but it's actually all you're given is PowerPoints and resources, and then you have to make your own resources, PowerPoint, whatever document, and present it. That's like the requirement for this specific lecture training. And even though the second generation knew that, I was so surprised and moved that so many, again, over 10 said, yes, I'm aware I have to present. Yes, I'm aware I'm not going to have, as much of a handheld experience, but I really want to do this. And we actually had specific interviews and meetings with each of these second generation before they started this journey to really check and see, are you aware? Is this okay? Are you really going to do it? And many of them showed absolute determination. And a lot of them, I was so moved to hear that the reason why they wanted to learn and be a part of this lecture training is because actually they wanted to evangelize their friends, or they felt that God was putting people in their lives who were asking questions about the Bible or who are open to learning about the Bible. But because second generation, yes, we know and have a lot of knowledge regarding this history, the Bible, Jesus, having that knowledge and actually being able to teach someone or really knowing it are two very different things, obviously. And so they wanted to take this opportunity of lecture training to come to really know the scriptures so that they could eventually teach and connect their friends. So I was so moved and really happy to see that although right now we're not doing an active evangelism effort through the second generation, this is more of a passive, really preparation stage of evangelism. Because if they can become really strong lecturers, then naturally God will send, just like he said in that Sunday message a little while ago, God will only send as many lives as we can handle. So everyone, please look forward to the second generation becoming really great and strong lecturers. If all 10 can become really great lecturers, how amazing would that be? 10 new lecturers, right? Especially here in America. That would be an incredible facet to our history and to the growth of Providence here. We had our first second gen presentation on the past Saturday, so January 3rd. I thought that was such an appropriate way for us to be able to give glory. Although I wasn't presenting, thankfully. We had one of our oldest participants for the second generation lecture training give his presentation or Bible study, which was over Elijah and the ravens. And I felt a little bad because in the interviews, I had been telling the second generation, right? Okay, yes, you're going to make your own PowerPoint and then you're going to present it. That's the whole point of this training program. It's you getting over your fear, getting confidence in speaking, etc. But I told them that at most they probably would be teaching 3 people, right? To a group of 3 people over Zoom. Maybe a second gen leader, maybe one of their peers, and maybe a leader that's not within this program, immediately within it, like a second gen leader or one of their peers. But we actually had 10 people, 10 including second gen leaders, those who are also in the program, other second generation, and leaders across America join to participate and give their support for the second generation presenting. So again, I felt a little bad. I texted him afterwards. I said, good job. I'm so sorry you had to teach 10 people. And of course he was very, very nervous. And he told me I was more nervous than I was expecting, but he was also incredibly grateful and thankful for those who joined. So if you're listening and you're somebody who joined, thank you so much. Definitely, if you're listening and you're within the States and you're interested or curious and how you could support the second generation and you want to offer your time in this way by participating and listening in to the lecture training program, please feel free to reach out to me or leave a comment below. We would really love to have that support for the second generation. And I can give you more details as well, personally. But yeah, it was overall speaking about the just listening, sitting into the Bible study. I was very moved to see how much time and effort was put into making the Bible studies. And yeah, it gave me a lot of hope to know that even second generation although maybe having a very easy way coming into Providence or a very difficult way, however it may be, at the very end of the day, there is this second generation that wants to preach the word and preach the gospel to the world. And I could feel, as the second generation speaker was presenting, I could feel the sincere heart, and it gave me a lot of hope for the future. So I hope too everyone can receive a lot of strength from the second generation and know that we are working really hard here in American Providence. Although you may not see results right away, definitely in the future, I hope that we can bear and present to the Lord many fruits. So, yes, I have to, of course, y'all know me, I'm always having to boast about second generation. I just can't help myself. And kind of moving that, like I said in my intro, there's a lot of different topics that I'm bouncing from day to day, but there's just so many things going on. And I think this theme of the new year, the year of running, is very appropriate, right? We moved to a new church. That's a big deal. Moving on Sunday. Everyone from church came and we put all these chairs and everything into our cars and then had to move it to the new church, and we're trying to organize it. And even on Sunday, we had our last Sunday service at the old church. And right after, everybody was so incredible, helping, moving tech, moving speakers, moving large pictures, moving everything. So really running as a whole church. And then also running a second generation department, lecture training, and really putting in our time and effort. But then also with this last thing, which I want to share now, the year of running. The message itself on Sunday was really powerful for me. It gave me a lot of motivation and a lot of strength. And I think for the most part, at the beginning of every single year, people have a lot of fire and power and motivation, right? New year, new me. You come up with all these resolutions and you're like, I'm gonna do it, right? There's this hope in this new year. People come up with vision boards, or even myself, actually, I've come up with this is maybe a thing you've seen on Instagram or TikTok. You can create a bingo card for yourself. So that's what I did, actually. I printed out like a pre-made bingo card, a blank one, and within the blank spaces, I wrote down my different resolutions so that throughout the year, I can mark them off, mark it off, and hopefully eventually get bingo. And, usually when you get bingo, you can give yourself a present or a gift or something like that, something fun. So the beginning of the year is always really filled and very fiery, and people are just running hard. But it's whenever we get into maybe July, October, it's those later months where life gets more difficult, and that concept of running becomes, in fact, tiring. Right? And Sansaram warned us about this already in the message. He said, you need to take care of yourself. Make sure you eat, make sure you sleep, so that you don't burn yourself out, so you can keep running. I already know for myself in the past as a second generation, but also knowing my character, knowing who I am as a person, looking forward, I could see myself really losing steam and perhaps even becoming discouraged or gain anxiety from this theme of the year of running. And this is because of a couple of things, of course. Like Sansanam always says, your thoughts are life. Everything has to do with your thoughts. And so I wanted to share this one thing that I got actually from I really enjoy video essays. And so I'm kind of calling myself out here, but I was watching a Avatar The Last Airbender video essay, because who doesn't love Avatar The Last Airbender? And this particular video essay, I must admit, it was really long. It was like an hour and a half long video. I wasn't just sitting there, watching it. I was actually doing stuff while I was also listening to it. All right, give me some slack. But it was very interesting, and it helped me to realize why people, when they hear perhaps this theme of running, right? Running until the end, you got to keep doing it, you got to keep doing more, can become overwhelmed and anxious. And it helped me to reflect and think, this is why I got anxious when I was listening to the word in the past, when I would hear, you need to do more, you need to do more. And so it gave me more insight as to how I could help future members and second gen who maybe go through that stage in their life of anxiety and feeling like, I can't do more. And so I wanted to share that here as well, in case anyone is already feeling that way, or maybe feeling that way in the future, and so you can reflect on this at that time. So, what was shared in this Avatar: The Last Airbender? Well, if you haven't watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, maybe you've been living under a rock, or maybe you're just very good at cutting off social media. Good job. It was a Nickelodeon show which aired in the early 2000s. And it's all about a young child, 12-year-old boy, who has to save the world. And him and his friends go on many adventures to do so. And they have to defeat this powerful, strong, evil overlord king of a different nation who's trying to overthrow and conquer the rest of the world. Pretty much that's what it is in a nutshell, right? Sounds like every other story. But it's heavily based off of Eastern ideology, which is very, very interesting. And so this specific video essay that I was watching was surrounded around a character. His name is Zuko. This is actually a banished prince of the evil king or overlord. Okay? Now, why he was banished, he has a scar on his face, how he got that, etc. All that, go watch the show. But this video essay did an incredible deep dive on the narrative and how important it is to have characters like this for children, along with why his redemption arc is so moving and one of the best kind of stories ever written. That's what the video essay was about. And so, essentially, to sum it all up, what was being talked about was the redemption arc. And I really felt connected to this in a way where, just like I was saying, how sometimes when you listen to the word and you listen to the message, you can really struggle and feel like you're not good enough. But we have to be able to redeem ourselves and realize also through the word that we are good enough and we can do more. How does this happen though? How do you go from point A to point B? From feeling like the world is ending, having anxiety, feeling overwhelmed from the word, to enjoying the word, liking the word, and receiving strength from it? Well, this is what I wanted to share about. So, in Western ideology, the concept of good and evil is very black and white. It's very clear. There is God and there is the devil, right? That's how it is in Western ideology or religion. Eastern ideology and Eastern religion is a tad bit different though. Yes, there is good and yes, there is evil. But the majority, the concept is that you cannot have darkness without light, as you cannot have light without darkness. And so rather than there being a clear defining line of separation between good and evil, like in Western ideology, what you're seeing is a focus more on the balance of good and evil, which everyone can have their own ideas on that. But the key thing that I wanted to discuss was behind that ideology. Like I said, Eastern ideology, without darkness, you cannot have light, and without light, you cannot have darkness. The concept of yin and yang. Just like it is in the world, they also miniaturize it as seen in people. A really good person can have negative things about them, and a really bad person can have good things about them. Whenever we're looking at a good person, though, let's pretend, for example, because that's what Providence people are. Very, very good people. And I think the majority of people are also very good. So when we're looking at a Providence person, a good person, what ends up happening is that through the word, Sansanim is always saying, right? Do more. Fix yourself. Make yourself. Repent. Right? And depending on your thoughts, that can be a really positive thing or a really negative thing. Why? Well, the reason is because Sansanim is constantly in providence. We are being forced to face our shadow. Now, what does this mean? In the video essay, it explained it a little bit. I'll try my best to explain it as simply as possible. But it means is that, like I said, in every good person, there's darkness in them. This is your shadow. The shadow is within us different. It can range from sins like greed. It could range from lust, envy, jealousy, gluttony, a wide range, anger. It can range for a wide variety of different things, but each person has their shadow. Now, what Sansanim and Providence does with this shadow is it, through the word, forces you to actually face it, to look at yourself, look at your flaws, look at your lacking areas, and Sansanim tells you to overcome them, right? If you have anger, he tells you overcome your anger, control your anger, destroy your anger. That's what Providence is all about. Now, unfortunately, though, if you are someone who, like I was in the past, did not understand it, sometimes it can feel, and this is where the anxiety comes from, it can feel that Providence in the word is forcing you to look at your flaws and imperfections and simply pointing them out. And again, that's where the anxiety comes from. Because rather, if your thoughts are not correct, rather than facing your shadow and overcoming it, you actually can become consumed by your shadow. And this happens to a lot of people. Especially, you can see it in people that leave Providence. People that leave Providence are ultimately consumed by their shadow, whatever it was. Oftentimes, it's the opposite sex. It may be gluttony, greed, whatever it may be. This is why whenever they leave, they don't really feel guilty anymore about what they felt guilty about when they were in Providence. Because now that they've been consumed by their shadow, there's no more light. There's no more contrast in, I probably shouldn't be doing this, right? Instead, now that they've consumed it, they've accepted their shadow fully. And as it is your shadow, this means accepting the worst parts of yourself and ultimately becoming the worst parts of yourself. In Providence, though, like I said, those that are in Providence, we're constantly being forced to face our shadow. But if you don't have the right thoughts, you will become consumed. The most important thing when facing your shadow, I realized, and it helped me to understand how I was able to overcome my anxiety when constantly hearing the words, run more, do more, be better, was that the Holy Trinity and the Lord are never saying those things out of malice or saying those things because they want to point them out to you and make you feel bad about yourself. It's not the case. And it was even more explicit in the Sunday message that we listened to. The reason why they're able to tell us these things, you have this flaw, look at yourself, fix yourself, make yourself better, is because they know that we can be better. We are the masters of our own destiny. We are the victors, or like in the Sunday message it said, we are the heroes. Heroes are the people that were able to take action more than anyone else. They were able to overcome. God and the Holy Trinity know and see that we are all heroes in this history. And because we're heroes, they know that we can fight and overcome our shadow. It's because they trust us and because they love us. But if it's that core that you don't realize that God and the Holy Trinity absolutely love you and absolutely value you, then yes, like the people that left, you can see the word forcing you to look at your shadow and think, oh, I'm horrible, I'm worthless. And that all stems from having incorrect thoughts. Thinking thoughts, for example, like, God doesn't love me, I'm not valuable enough, which is absolutely not true. You can have a shadow and you can have flaws. You just need to accept them and then let it go. And trust and know that God indeed loves us in spite of the flaws that we have. He just wants to live with us forever. I was really thinking about that. Oftentimes when you listen to the songs in the world or in media, I really realized this. Songs that are really popular are always songs where one person has complete control over the other person in love. And that can range from, very lustful to just obsessive or toxic nature. But people kind of want this, having control over one person entirely. Why? Well, it's because people are afraid of getting burned, loving someone and not being reciprocated in that way. A one-sided love, a crush. And because people don't want that, and they think, oh, the other person has to love me so much, like be completely obsessed with me, I should be able to control them, and they have that expectation or this toxicity that's kind of how it is. A lot of people in the world, and you see it through social media, you see it through natural media we consume, or even in songs, that this is kind of not the standard, but what people would want. Someone who's completely obsessed with you, because then they'll never leave me, right? But this is not a natural love. This is more like someone was saying last week during the message, an unnatural stimulation, right? He was talking about this regard to drugs and alcohol, of course, but I think it also can apply to love. That's an unnatural stimulation of love, where it's so heavy on one person controlling and being overbearing and needing that obsessive love from the other to feel validated and to feel like they're loved at all. But I realized in Providence, that's not the type of love that it is at all. God is very fair and God is very just. He says, I will give you according to what you do. That's what he said in the Sunday message, and we heard that many, many times again. God will love us. He loves us always and continuously, but he'll show us that love according to how much we show him love, right? And so it's completely different from how the world views love or how the world wants to be loved in an obsessive kind of nature. God is like the world is, for example, like a guy who love bombs you, which is just giving you gifts constantly, paying attention to you constantly, doing all this stuff for you, and then takes it away all of a sudden. And you're like, what happened? And then you run after them. And because you're running after them, they get colder. And then you give up. And then they love bomb again. So it's like this toxic cycle. But God's love, God is he's so pure and he's so kind. He genuinely loves us and likes us. So he's the guy that will be, for example, or the girl who would be very just like, I like you, right? Let's be together. And he would be the guy who wouldn't leave you on red. He would be the guy or the girl that would just talk to you like a natural person, give you respect, and wouldn't love bomb you, but would respect your boundaries, would be kind, would treat you like a normal person, who wouldn't make you, right? Everything wouldn't be super obsessive over you. He would love you as much as you love him. That's normal, in a normal way. And I guess in going back to the shadow concept with anxiety and how you can overcome the anxiety of having to do more and having to run more and be a stallion, is acknowledging that there is a difference in love here in Providence with God, but it's not a bad difference. It's actually healthy. It's a good thing. So in the same way, when we're taking action, we have to change our thoughts. We have to acknowledge that the providence that we have here, the truth, the word, and how God loves us and how God will give us according to how we act, right, to him, is the correct and appropriate way. It is the healthy way, like I was saying. It's not the toxic love that we see in the world. It's the healthy, correct way. Now, what we see in, for example, with Christianity, which is very interesting, is that in Christianity, I think it's far easier, and with the size, history, length of Christianity here on this earth for over 2,000 years, it's very easy for people of a wide range, from really rich to maybe, a little bit more mentally ill people to be able to be accepted in Christianity. Why? Well, it's because Christianity has the concept and the ideology of come as you are, which I think is so interesting to me because Jesus literally says, be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect in Matthew chapter 5, verse 48. But they kind of gloss over that and say, Jesus didn't really say that. But in Christianity, it's definitely a come as you are. So you're not going to hear messages like here in Providence where it's do better, do more. In Christianity, because you can come as you are, then anyone can go to Christianity, which is fine. But it kind of leads to, I don't want to say toxic love, because Christianity is really great, and the fact they believe in Jesus is so incredible and amazing. But it leads to, similarly, a one-sided love where people really do believe, well, Jesus will love me no matter what. Jesus died for my sins, so, I can live my life kind of no matter what. And there's that joke people always say, which I hate, which is, well, Jesus died for my sins, so I might as well, insinuating they might as well go ahead and sin because otherwise Jesus died for nothing, which is so ridiculous. But in Providence, we don't have that come as you are mentality. Providence has a mentality of, yes, you are God's beloved bride. Come to this history, for you were called and you were chosen. And because you were called and because you were chosen, now let's make ourselves even more. Why? Because you can. You can face your shadow. You're capable. You're able. You're strong enough. You are the hero of your own life and of your own destiny. And God is with you in this way. And so we create an actual real relationship, a reciprocal relationship with God. It's not one-sided like in Christianity. Christianity definitely is like the world is super toxic, and then you got, the world is super toxic. It's like the really, really hot porridge. And then you got Christianity, which is the really, really cold porridge, kind of one-sided love. And then you got Providence, which is an actual healthy, real relationship with God, a reciprocal relationship with God, with porridge that's just right, just warm enough. I hope my analogy of those three different things made sense. That's from, if you don't know the story, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Anyways, but yes, that's what it is like. Providence versus Christianity versus the world. And so through my watching of that video essay regarding one of my favorite TV shows, along with just really reflecting and thinking about the world, Christianity, as well as my own past, I came to receive a greater appreciation and understanding of, this is why in Providence, although it's really hard, and of course we have a lot of expectations, it's almost like sometimes the whole weight of the world is on our shoulders. But it's important to remember to not get burnt out. And how we do that, again, like I keep saying, is that you have to realize every time God and the Holy Trinity speak to us, talk to us, and especially through like this theme of this year, 2026, the year of running, it's because God knows that we can do it, that we're fully capable. He really trusts us in that way. And he believes in us, and he knows that we can do it. So we can face our shadow, and rather than being consumed like the world, we are people who have the power to overcome it with the word and the Lord. So I hope you enjoyed that. I think today's 2G Talks ranged from, physical matters and then all the way to very spiritual, philosophical. But I really enjoyed it. I actually enjoyed researching and learning about different ideologies and different religions even in that way, because at the end of the day, I've noticed everything just goes back to providence. Everything always leads back to proving once again to myself and to others, oh, wow, providence is the true history. At least that's how I feel. But I hope that you gained a lot, and that through the rest of this year for 2026, you will not just run at the beginning, but that we will all run together until the very end. So with that, I will conclude 2G Talks for today. Please, of course, as always, leave a like, a comment, especially if you want to connect to the second gen lecture training. And you can also send Eddie and I an email at 2gtalks@gmail.com. All right. I will see you guys next week for the second week of January 2026.
Don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign. Just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone, you know. I'm on the morning star driving